Well, welcome to episode 18 of the Impactus podcast. We are committed to equipping you as a man for a life of purpose and godly impact. And today we have on the podcast an old friend of mine, and I'm not calling you old, Steve, at all when I say that. But Steve Arterburn is joining us on the podcast today. For those of you who don't know Steve, he's the founder of New Life Ministries and host of the syndicated Christian counseling radio show, New Life Live. He's also a teaching pastor at his church. And we are just so excited to have Steve on with us today. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kirk. So great to get reunited with you. I mean, I have such really great memories of Promise Keepers Canada. And, I love you guys. Or I know you're not there anymore, but I still love you, even though you're not there anymore. But I just tell people the most memorable story.
Yeah.
So you were running Promise Keepers, and I was coming up, regular speaker, and we were going to do this big meeting in a very large church. And all of a sudden I get a call from you that there was like an associate pastor had raised a couple of issues. One, he said one of the speakers that was signed up was had some written or spoken some heretical things. And the other was I should not, and that person shouldn't come. And then I shouldn't come because I was divorced. And so I get this call from you. You tell me all that and that you're looking into the heresy, but you really need to, satisfy this guy and the church, now the head pastor's there, about the divorce. That, did I have an affair? Was I a bad guy? Whatever. So you did the investigation. Of course, my wife had a very, very we'd had a difficult marriage for 20 years, and then she had an affair. And then she divorced me. And like the people down here, you discovered it wasn't a scandal. It was a tragedy is what it was. And so you looked into the heresy guy, and sure enough, you called the pastor and said, yeah, you're right. There's some crummy stuff here. We don't like it. He's not going to come and speak. But you told the pastor, you looked into my situation. There is no disqualification of me as a speaker. And here's what you guys said. You said, if we can't bring him, choose the people we have speak, then we're not going to come to your church. Well, we went. I mean, they said, okay, come. And I don't know if you remember, I sure do. We had a lot of men. I did the offering call that night, and we had so many people come. But this is the headline. That year, your theme was leave no man behind. And I'm telling you, did you guys ever live up to that theme? You didn't leave me behind. And it would have been so easy just to say, a lot of speakers. And I have never, ever stopped telling that story. And so grateful, Kirk, that you, there's just an example that you are a man of integrity, even in things like this. And you just were true to your word. So I'm indebted to you forever. And so thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that story, Steve, and for your very kind words. Your check's in the mail. And yeah. But I remember that event vividly. I remember how God worked in men's lives. I'm so grateful for that time. And I'm grateful too for the other times when you've spoken, when you ended up marrying the woman who is now your wife, you guys spent the first days of your marriage together in Winnipeg, Manitoba in winter. So
well, she wanted to get married on the date 3, 4, 5. And I had already committed to speak with you guys. So we just decided, okay, we will get married early in the morning, hop on a plane, fly up there. I would speak that night. Then we'd fly on to California, and then we'd fly on to our honeymoon. And so she tells everybody that her wedding night she spent with 1,500 men. And so it's just, but it's been such a part of our story. And I'm so glad that, we just said, look, honeymoon, it's kind of a rough experience the first night anyway. So let's just get this thing out of the way. We'll do it there. But, we've always prayed for you guys, and so grateful to hear that you are now in real ministry, working in a church where, wow, that is quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's been a great blessing, even during COVID, to be able to do this, and I love the ministry, Promise Keepers Canada, and all that it's done and is doing in the days ahead. So glad we could have this conversation. Steve, one of the things, and kind of a focus of our conversation today, we're going to be talking about secrets that men keep, and in all the years that I worked with men, that is something that just kept coming up over and over again. Men. It seems like almost every guy that I've worked with, to some degree, they keep secrets. And I started thinking about this question because I've heard a lot of guys interact on this topic, and guys will say to me, like, Kirk, what's the big deal if I have a secret? What is wrong exactly if I have secrets? Because even the Bible seems to indicate that sometimes God doesn't let us in on everything that he's thinking or feeling. He keeps some things completely to himself. So what's the big deal if I have secrets? What do you say to guys who have that kind of question?
Yeah. Well, there are some secrets that are really good to keep because it's not our story to tell. Let's just say your wife was sexually abused by her father, and you know that. Well, that's not something that you should be sharing with anyone unless she has said, I don't mind you talking about this. But if she's never shared it openly or she's dealing with it in therapy, well, that would be a secret that you would want to keep because it's not your story to tell. God can keep secrets because we know that there aren't any harmful secrets that God has. And he does keep certain things secret from certain people. They are not responding to him, so things are not revealed to them. But what we're talking about in the area of secrets are the ones that are so damaging and hurtful. And, when I started Women of Faith, we had our first speaker was Barbara Johnson, and she had this little saying that we are only as sick as our secrets. David reflected that when he said, in my silence, my bones waxed old. I think that's the King James version of that. But all of us know that when we have a secret, it's there, it has power, it can prevent us from being a man of integrity and authenticity. And we also know that when we finally come out of hiding, and we open up about something we're not very proud of, it takes so much of the power out of that secret, and then it enables us to do something about it. And of course, I have to mention, probably the biggest secret among Christian men that I've dealt with is the pornography secret. It's just kind of like the epidemic beyond COVID that has hurt so many men and so many families.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that secret as part of the conversation. You talked about a secret, like if your wife has a story of abuse, and it's important to keep those kinds of things secret. But let's say it's something about yourself, a secret of some kind about yourself. Are all secrets sinful?
I don't think so. But if you have some secret sin, if you have found a safe place to share that, then you're so much better off. And we do have this mandate when it comes to sin. James 5:16, confess your sins one to another and pray for each other that you might be healed. So we do have directions to be open with each other about our sins, but I don't have to share everything. But, I had a best friend for 40 years named Dave Stoop, and he just died on March the 10th, and a very sad loss for everybody, but especially me. And he was my writing partner. We did the Every Man's Bible and Life Recovery Bible together. And I just told him everything. If there was something that I needed to talk about, he was the safest, most consistent person. and he shared things with me. So it's not a matter of, is it okay to keep some things secret? I would evaluate each secret and decide, would it be better if I shared or not? In my family, my father never told me something, and I didn't know it until I was 18 years old. I thought my grandfather had died of a heart attack. But at 18, I mentioned his heart attack to my older brother, and he said, "What are you talking about? Our grandfather killed himself. He shot himself in the head with a shotgun, blew his head off."
Wow.
I mean, horrible thing. Well, back then, when he did that, suicide was such a shameful thing that nobody talked about it. Well, when I found out about it, my big thing was, well, what family was I living in? I mean, why didn't I know this? And to discover it by accident. So sometimes, you need to evaluate not whether it's good for you to keep it secret, but could it be harmful to someone else? Because that was harmful to me. I'll tell you another secret. When my father died, my mother said, it's so amazing. He was such a great man, because to be a deacon in the Baptist church, he had to give up drinking beer. And boy, did he ever love beer. And I go, what? What are you talking about? I heard that he drank a half of a beer on a Navy ship when they ran out of water. That was and so, here I was with my brothers who were growing up in Texas, and, we were drinking beer as kids, and we shouldn't have been, and maybe we wouldn't have if my dad had said, this is something I used to love to do, and I quit, and you could too. You don't have to do this. You could do it too. But instead, total disconnection. I think he doesn't understand about that or anything. So most often, when we're open and honest about things, figure out why we want to keep it a secret, look at the advantage if we could reveal it. It's probably better to be open than to keep it a secret.
So you talked about pornography as being probably the biggest secret that Christian men are keeping. What are some of the top areas of life in your experience working with guys? What are some of the other areas that we tend to keep secrets?
Well, I think, any kind of addiction. I knew a guy, he was a great church guy, and didn't know that he had struggled with alcohol earlier in life. And his wife knew, and he had quit, but all of a sudden he was drinking again. So, that was a big secret that he kept for quite a long time. But beyond that, I think a lot of men were not open about our finances. Now, of course, we don't want to be bragging about that, but a lot of people are driving some nice cars, living in great houses, and they would never tell you how far in debt they are. There were, earlier in my life, there were 3 couples, and the 3, we just hung out together. And one of the men in that group of 6 died. And oh my goodness, he lived in a great house, drove a great car. And after he died, his wife all of a sudden starts getting these calls. Where's the $100,000 payment? And the guy had gone so in over his head and had this image that he had projected, but never told any of us, "Hey, I'm a fake, I'm a fraud." So I think finance is a big one. And then I think very few men would ever admit that they really do feel inadequate, that they struggle with inadequacies. They think nobody has any of this struggle or weakness or vulnerability that I have. Everybody's got it together but me, and that's probably because they didn't have a father that really tried to be with them and bond with them. And so I think that inadequacy thing is really huge. And I think also men aren't open and honest about the struggle in their marriage. They're just not, they might complain about the wife, but they're sure not talking about their contribution to the problem. So those are just some things I think are right at the top of the list of things we just don't want to share with other people because our pride, our image, the ego, all of that stands in the way of us being open and honest about who we are.
I found that for a lot of guys, we justify why it's okay to keep secrets, but we don't think through the kind of damage, or even sometimes the extra work it takes to keep the secrets. What have you seen in men in terms of the kind of damage that can happen in their life when they're working to keep secrets?
Well, the word that comes to mind is duplicity. Duplicity is, of course, the opposite of authenticity. And it's really not easy to live a duplicitous life where you are covering up and hiding and then you're trying to live over here as this in this other way. But I know this, that whenever we are married or when we have a father-child relationship, rather than love and connection flowing both ways, when we have a secret, it puts a barrier up. It prevents love flowing both ways. It prevents total connection. There's always a running dialogue inside of our head of, well, don't bring that up, or, oh, I hope they don't ask this, don't touch on that. But when you're secret free, then you're open, honest, and it's easier to be in a relationship where you've eliminated the duplicity and you're just who you are.
Yeah, that's a really good word. I know guys right now even who are they have financial issues and they've kept them hidden from their wife. Yeah. And man, like they're working overtime to keep the secret.
Yeah.
And you end up in this space where you get so stressed out and you don't remember which story you told yesterday.
Right.
And it will catch up with you. I mean, in addition to stressing yourself out, you're just creating you're digging a deeper hole for when it eventually comes out in the open.
Right. More pain.
Yeah. More pain for yourself, more pain for the people that you say that you love. Like there's just such don't dig too deep a hole, guys, for yourself. Figure out how to start stepping out and bringing your secrets into the light. You talked about the porn issue, and when I've talked with men about porn and starting to bring that out and not keeping it as a secret anymore, one of the things that I hear from a lot of men, porn or other issues, is I really want to keep my secret hidden because if this comes out, the pain for myself or for even people that I love is going to be so huge, right? And so there's this mental battle where they listen to guys like you and I say, hey, bring it out into the open because you're just creating more pain for yourself. But in the guy's mind, he's going, but if I bring it out in the open, like this is going to go badly for me and for the people I love if I bring this out into the open. So what advice do you give to a guy who just feels like I need to keep my secrets hidden because the pain to other people or even to myself is going to be too significant if this comes out?
Yeah. Well, let's just say that there are some guys that could accurately predict that their wife is so accepting, she's humble, looks at her own problems all the time, that if he were to confess this, she would work with him, he would get help. So you got that. But then there are other guys. Let's just say that you accurately can predict if you shared this, there'd be a divorce. Okay. So how about this? How about get some help anonymously? Tell your wife you're going to go to a workshop for men. A men where it's like we do it every man's battle weekend. And guys come in. A lot of them don't even want to be there. they've gotten caught, and so they're there for their wife, and it's our job to turn them around. But you go to that, and you'll probably not ever use pornography again. So you go, and then you go to some kind of self-help group or support group, get counseling, and 6 months later, now you've got 6 months free of pornography. Now I guarantee you that she's going to notice a change in you. So now when you come to her, you can say this: there's something I really didn't want to tell you 6 months ago. I knew I needed to quit it. I was afraid you'd divorce me. I had done this and that. I got help. And I want to tell you, for 6 months, the change you've seen in me is because I have been totally clean and free of anything, any lust whatsoever. And I hope and pray you can forgive me for getting into it. I hope and pray you'll respond to what I've done about it. There are very few women that would leave or cause further damage given that. So you can sit there and say, I can't confess this, or you could just take care of it and not have that problem anymore. And maybe after 6 months, you don't even need to confess now, because it's just not part of your life. And there's just no reason to go back and rehash stuff that doesn't even matter to you anymore. I think that's less, that's kind of second best to sharing, and then you go forth together knowing each other fully. But the big thing is, you're going to keep doing what you're keeping secret, or you're going to do whatever it takes to get it taken care of. The courageous guy does what he doesn't want to do at exactly the time he doesn't want to do it. He does it anyway, no matter the consequences. And that's what courage is. That's what biblical manhood is. It's dying to self. Servant leadership doesn't really describe biblical manhood. Servant leadership's very tidy. I will stoop to serve and I'll look good and all that. But die to yourself leadership, where I'm not just caring about my family, but I'm there. I don't just go to the golf course all day and then help with dishes after dinner. A lot of days I say I can't go to the golf course because my family needs me right there. And I'm not just a great servant leader because I get help for my children when they need it. No, I'm a die to myself leader, and I go get help for me, and I set the pace for others in my family getting the help that they need. So it's not fun being a leader in a family that's a die to yourself leader. And it's not fun being that guy when he realizes I have to be open and honest about me. And the more open and honest I can be and have few things I need to cover up, then the better everybody's going to be.
Yeah, that's so good. And I like the idea of just taking that initiative to go and get the help that you need, because that's always your first step. And most guys don't know how to take that step, or they feel stumped because, I don't know if I can go to a friend, because for the most part, I don't have that kind of friend. Most guys, talking to my spouse is probably not always my first choice if I'm carrying secrets as a guy. We convince ourselves that our pastors don't understand because they don't live in the real world. And so in a counselor, we go, well, I don't have the money to pay for a counselor or whatever. But you've given some really good scenarios where guys can just go find the help that you need, take the steps. I'm wondering, are there any people or any situations that a guy should not go to? Are there warning signs or places that don't go looking for these people to provide the help you need in bringing your secrets out?
Well, there are some places that are not safe. For instance, if you're in a church where you've seen it happen, somebody comes to the pastor and confesses something, and now he's up in front of the church, and the pastor's telling everybody I'm not going to do that. Also, it's not safe because there's so much shame there that you may not speak of it in church, but then you're like an outcast. So that's not safe. And then a third kind of not safe is that what the pastor does when somebody confesses to that pastor, they tell them to read the Bible more, pray more, which I'm really big on reading the Bible more and pray more. But that's Jeremiah 6:14 says, they treat the deep mortal wounds of my people with superficial treatments. And if you know that you've got somebody that's pretty big on superficial treatments, then that's not going to be a good place. But when there's a church, they've got a ministry where they believe that some people are called to provide good Christian counseling, or there are Christian support groups, then that's probably going to be a good place to open up and share and ask for help.
Yeah, that's good. I want to add to that. I've run into some guys who they've gone and started to speak to some coworkers, and sometimes coworkers of the opposite sex. So they'll go and speak to some women that they work with, and I'm like, especially if you're struggling in your marriage, like, do not open yourself up to that kind of stuff, guys. Like, you are opening up Pandora's box, and you do not want to go down that path of.
No wonder you're struggling.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are about out of time for the podcast today, Steve. We've just kind of scratched the surface on this topic of secrets, and especially things like pornography. You mentioned some of the workshops that New Life has for guys and helping them to work through pornography, the Every Man's Battle stuff. How can our listeners connect with you and with the ministry and find out more about some of these tools that you have available?
Well, there's the New Life Live Facebook page. There's our website is newlife.com, and our 800 number is 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And we do a lot of great things. We do a marriage intensive that has about a 95% success rate, even with folks who hate each other when they come. And we have Every Man's Battle. But then for the woman who's been hurt by a sexual integrity problem, we have a Restore workshop. And then we also do an emotional freedom workshop. A lot of people with anxiety and depression come to that. And you can find out about that at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or newlife.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve, so much. Appreciate your wisdom on this topic and your encouragement for men today. Bless you, brother. Appreciate it.
Kirk, great to be with you. You keep up the great work, and I'm really happy for that church you're at. I know they're being blessed by you.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for listening to the Impactus podcast. To learn more about living a life of purpose and godly impact, check out impactus.org.